watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. Oh, and that picture. We found that picture for you that was emailed through.
Oh,
Ellie, here we go.
Here it is. Oh, there I am.
There you go. There you go. That's from Jill.
She's got the hair exactly right. That's how I wear it, down one shoulder.
She's got the mugs right.
She's got the mugs right. And the neckline on this dress. It's very
Fabulous.
good. Apparently I look like a Canadian comedian, I'm being told in my ear. I'd love to know who that is.
Oh, yes, Catherine Ryan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll
There
take
you
that.
go.
Yeah.
Well done.
Even the little flower pot there, very nice. Good
Yeah.
attention to detail. You can do Stephen next.
Yeah, there you go. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, huge tributes to Barry Humphries. No surprise that face is all over the papers this morning. Let's have a look at the Star for you. I mean, I actually think this is the worst picture of the lot because it looks like a posed picture, if you know what I mean.
Great headline, though.
But, good night, possums.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe these people have gone. That's a better picture.
That's the better picture. This is The Observer. Yeah, you like that one, don't you? If you were picking pictures, you'd choose that one.
That one. Yeah.
It also touches on the Raab scandal as well and the Tory plan to politicise the civil service. This is Lord Maud, who's written in The Observer, basically saying there needs to be a new robust culture in Whitehall with ministers maybe choosing their own civil servants.
During all that hoo-ha over Boris Johnson and not being able to afford to redecorate number 10 or the flat in number 11 or whichever one he was staying with, he's not short on money or friends with money. He's been, according to this is on the Sunday Mirror this morning, he's been staying at a £4,000 a night villa, but apparently it belongs to his cousin, who is some sort of tycoon. Something like that. I mean, it all gets very... But anyway, it's his fourth holiday in 10 months.
He does get some great holidays.
He does get some great holidays. I mean, you sort of would expect it in a way, but, you know, £4,000 a night.
I think he's got the right sort of friends, though, hasn't he?
Must do.
With villas.
But why is he not paying for anything himself? Because didn't he earn about £5 million in the 6 months after he stopped being
He's earning a lot being a talker and a speaker, afternoon speaker, isn't he? Clearly it's not going in the holiday fund. The friends are paying for that.
Yeah.
This is the Mail. Eco-warriors could cause injury or death at the King's coronation. Well, we hope not.
No.
But that's the warning on the front page of the Mail.
Spook the horses with rape alarms. Well, those are very, very well-trained horses with excellent riders.
Yeah.
I would say try your best, but no, you know, don't
try.
But actually, I tell you what, if you are someone who is of the ilk to think, oh, I'd like to try and disrupt it, bear in mind that is all lined with people with guns that are loaded, and that if they think you pose a threat to the king or the royal family, you will be shot. I mean, do not mess about with these people. They're soldiers. Do not mess about. I mean, it's just crazy if you think you're going to fool about with that sort of thing.
Security is so high at these events, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the Times leads with a very distressing story of an MI6 spy sent to a jihadist camp. He killed his own child after a report warned he was emotionally unstable. Really distressing report, that one.
Very worrying. Let's look at that in a bit more detail. Anyway, journalist and political consultant Emma Burnell and the editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, are both here with us this morning. Good to see you.
Morning.
Emma, let's kick off with the Sunday Telegraph, should we? Because the Home Secretary says she's not bothered what the judges say. She's going to get on and deport migrants.
So this is not new today, it's just new that she's commented on it. There was an amendment that the government accepted to their legislation going through the Commons at the moment, which will say that in certain circumstances the British government has the right to overrule, to issue a Section 39 order, I think it is, or to overrule a Section 39 order, which is where the European judges have said that the deportation of migrants specifically to Rwanda is not blanketly illegal, but is illegal in certain cases and would need to have higher thresholds in certain cases, and that's what stopped the deportations last time.
Yeah.
It's almost certainly going to get through the Commons. The government has accepted the amendment. Where they may run into trouble is in the Lords, where there are people with a lot of law lords, a lot of Conservative peers who are on the more liberal wing, who will find this, be very queasy about the idea of instituting into law overruling judges.
Except, you said, we're talking about the ECHR, aren't we? European Court of Human Rights, which, according to David Mellor on Friday, and bear in mind he's a QC, or was a QC, he says actually there is the ECHR is not a court and just, actually holds no power.
Well, there's the ECJ, which is the European Court of Justice, and the ECHR, which is the European Human Rights Commission.
But it's
those are two different separate things.
Yeah, but it's the ECHR that's blocked this, isn't it? Not the ECJ?
The ECJ would be the legislative arm that oversees what the ECHR implements. So a judge has blocked it. An international judge has blocked it. That's what they're saying they want to overrule.
That just heightens the call for us to leave the ECJ, doesn't it?
It will, from the people who wish to do so, yes. The problem with all of these things is you'll always find a case to support your argument, and you will always find a case to support the argument against. And we will go back and forward on these things. If we wish to deport migrants to Rwanda, there are questions about how many migrants will be able to deport. I have a question which I don't know the answer to, but I haven't heard anyone discussing in this, which is what do we do if Rwanda destabilises, which is not that unlikely.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, it's not that unlikely. Rwanda has been a success story, but there are many surrounding countries which are descending into civil war. There are issues in Rwanda where the government is less stable than it was a year ago. Have we put in any sort of measures to say, well, hang on, once Rwanda reaches this point, we will not deport people there because it is not a safe third country anymore? These are questions that we do need to ask, whether or not you agree with the policy. So I think we need to be, rather than simply saying yes, no, deportations to Rwanda. I obviously, very liberal, have my own view on that. But what I would like to see is those people who are in favour of it or wish to scrutinise it, really scrutinising it properly and really making sure that it's a strong and defensible policy in their view.
Well, I think that's a good argument for saying we should have these arguments out in our own legislature, that you shouldn't have ECHR judges being able to issue these, they call them pyjama injunctions, middle of the night.
Well, they don't call them that. Tory MPs call them that, but yeah.
Well, of course, that would be a very strange thing for them to do, but I think that's the problem is I don't support the Rwanda policy. I think it is ungenerous and so on. The issue of the boat crossings needs to be stopped, but I'd rather it was stopped in a more humane fashion, but at the same time that's almost a separate question. Now the question is, do our elected representatives, are they able to set migration policy in line with what they believe the people who voted for them want? And I think if we're in a situation where that's being outsourced or blocked or interfered with by a foreign court effectively, that's a big problem, and I think it's served to inflame the migration issue for so many years because of the fact that people felt that regardless of who they voted into government, regardless of what pledges they made, because of membership of the EU, but also a member of the ECHR, the Tories always could just blame them and say there's reasons we can't do this. So I think actually being able to properly take back control, to coin a phrase, of policy allows us to actually have an argument about it and set out what we want to do, and that's what I think is the key thing.
Okay. You'll have a view on that at home. Let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tom, let's stay with you, shall we? On the Mail, we just touched on this coronation disruption. There's warnings, isn't there, in the Mail?
Yes, so there's concerns that there are groups of extremists, as the Mail has it here, who have been threatening to take rape alarms to the coronation, as you've already been discussing, throwing them at the horses in an attempt to disrupt the procession. As many people have pointed out, this could lead to them bolting. It could lead to both the riders but also people in the crowd potentially being put at threat. It's not entirely clear what group and of what political persuasion the police fear here. There's mention in the piece in general about both Republican and environmentalist groups, but at the same time it doesn't pin it on them specifically, but it just speaks to, I guess, the security concerns which are going to surround any kind of big high-profile event like this. So it's not even entirely clear if this is ones with a kind of specifically Republican agenda or if it's just people who want to go and cause trouble, exactly, but concerns there about what...
Why would you want to distress the horses? Why would you want to, say, put civilians at risk in that sense, but also members of our armed forces who are doing their job who could potentially be hurt by this? Why would you want to do that?
I mean, it seems like a way to, whatever cause might be attached to it, to completely push people in the other direction. I just think it's people who are just going to cause trouble for the sake of it.
And as I say, I think you stand a very good chance of being shot. I know that sounds very dramatic.
We're seen throwing something.
But yeah, if you throwing something into the parade, you're going to get shot. They're not going to mess about.
No.
It's your own fault. I wouldn't have any sympathy. I wouldn't.
Well, we saw the same sort of warnings, didn't we, with the Grand National, and thankfully the police were totally across those warnings, and they acted very, very quickly. There were protesters, but they were very quickly rounded up, and hopefully we see the same sort of thing. But there are warnings, and they are stark.
I mean, I think we do need to differentiate between the right to protest. There is, and I think that is perfectly fair. And
how you do it.
But it is absolutely how you do it. And I do. I just wonder what anybody who is trying to influence the British public, which is ultimately what any stunt protest is about, is trying to raise the profile of an issue and influence the public, thinks that the British public are famously animal loving. If you mess around with horses, I'm not talking about the Grand National where they felt they were doing that for the sake of the horses, but here, it just doesn't feel to me like the kind of stunt that will be helpful. Having said that, there's not an awful lot of there in the story. It's this might happen. A senior source speculates that. We don't know which groups. So it might just be that,
I'll tell you what, these aren't people with an agenda, though, like a political agenda or an environmental agenda, is it? If you're going to do that, these are people who just want to cause trouble. And you do get those in these protest groups.
You get a certain amount of people who are drawn to troublemaking, but there are people in these groups who are incredibly passionate about their causes and really believe in it. And the problem comes with anything. When you're deeply, deeply passionate, you can convince yourself that any action is the right action. Something must be done. It's the worst phrase in politics. But because it always means that you can justify whatever that something is, whether it's actually deeply unhelpful to your cause.
Yeah, well, let's hope this never happens. Imagine, would the Prime Minister be on holiday, the former Prime Minister, I should say, be on holiday for all this? He's swanning off a lot, isn't he, Boris Johnson, according to the Sunday Mirror?
Is he ever not on holiday, is my question. And I know I'm not being funny, but I'm saving up desperately to try and maybe get a weekend in the Greek islands at some point this year. Could anyone out there, if you're watching and have a £4,000 a night villa, I'm available. I will.
Anytime you like.
Anytime you like. I will take it on the off season, absolutely. But he's perfectly entitled to do it, but I think we're perfectly entitled to think it's a little stinky.
Well, also, shouldn't he be doing his job?
He also should be doing his job. And 4 holidays in 10 months, that is really not someone doing their full-time job.
No, but it's clearly someone who doesn't care about getting re-elected at the next election, isn't it? And everyone's saying, he's desperate to be Prime Minister again. He's clearly not bothered. He's on a pretty tight wicket as it is in his constituency. He's not going to get re-elected doing this.
Well, not in Uxbridge.
No.
He may have eyes, I swear.
And he claims that he's going to stick it out and slug it out in Uxbridge and South Ruislip, but as you say, many are less convinced by that, not least because it was a quite close call last time around, at least for that constituency. But it's interesting that whenever he's on holiday, it seems like someone else paid for it. Even his current living accommodation, he's got a couple of houses that he's basically using at the...
including one, I believe, near
favourite
Ellie.
of other people. There you go.
Or he's been seen house hunting.
It's hard to see what would motivate him to stay in politics. He's making so much money on the speaking circuit, isn't he? And he's got friends in high places that can put him up on nice holidays.
I think with Boris Johnson,
try again. Though.
He's never happy unless he's unhappy. So if he's at the top of politics, he's not earning enough money. If he's earning all the money, he's not at the top of politics. So I think he's one of those people who's motivated by what he doesn't currently have.
Maybe. I just sort of think. I couldn't live a life where everything I do is paid for by other people.
Oh, really?
No, I joke about it, but I would feel so obligated. It was just weird to me. And I can't imagine being a person who would expect that kind of thing.
No.
And as you were saying, Stephen, as well, in terms of the election in his own constituency, if he does indeed stand, there's nothing more toxic in a quite a tight local race than he doesn't really care about the constituency, is never there and so on, so it does make you think, is he actually serious about it?
Tom, let's have a look at the Sunday People now. This about a story about knife crime.
Yeah, so this is a story in the Sunday People. They sent one of their reporters to essentially pose as a teenager on the internet to try and procure zombie knives, which are these big, almost machete-style knives and so on, actually kind of talking back and forth with someone who's selling it to them, saying, it cuts through things like butter and so on, kind of bragging.
Butter? Butter. It's not a butter knife, that.
just essentially kind of bragging about how sharp and so on it is, and talking about you can deliver it, and concerns about the fact how easy it would be for a young person not only just to procure a knife, but a particularly large and dangerous one. These are ones that you have seen cases of police taking them off young teens in particular, and obviously the context for this is the fact that it's ONS statistics here that knife killings in England and Wales were the highest for 76 years in 21, 22, and that you're seeing kids, in some of these stories, not even necessarily into proper mid-teens before they're finding themselves caught up in this. So growing clamour to say, what is the point of selling these particular knives? They have no real practical application. It seems like they're just very big, very scary, and as this bloke selling them likes to brag, very sharp. So to clamp down on them.
But clamp down on them. But they need. I mean, it's a pretty serious offence to be caught with a knife. They need to start. But they need to start tougher sanctions on that, don't they? It's like if you're caught with a firearm, is it 5 years you get for you're just having a firearm?
I'm not sure, but it's certainly. I mean,
it's a good stretch inside, and it needs to be the same. Because how on earth do you get the message through to these young people that you do not carry knives?
Yeah, no, it is extraordinary. I was lucky enough to be spending some of my time this week around the district of Epping. And I was walking through this beautiful, picturesque village, and outside of the police station in this beautiful was a knife amnesty bin.
Yeah.
And I just thought, gosh, what a signal of the modern times that we live in. That's so not what you'd expect in this beautiful, picturesque place. And it made me think about the fact that a lot of this is coming in and out of London to the home counties now. The county line stuff, and we do need to crack down. And I think the problem is, we need to crack down on kids carrying knives and trying to change that culture, but we also need to go much higher than that, because there's a reason those kids are carrying the knives. There's a reason. We get to the sellers, get to the people running the gangs. That's how you really crack down on this.
I mean, the reality is that zombie knives, it's terrifying when they're being advertised on TikTok, but the reality is the kitchen knife would do the same thing, wouldn't it? It's not about the accessibility, it is about the culture and why kids are carrying them in the first place. Emma, we need to talk about Barry Humphries. Don't we? Pictures all over the papers this morning. But we're looking at the Star in particular and the tributes to Barry Humphries and Dame Edna.
Absolutely. I mean, Dame Edna was just my whole life been this absolute icon. I was talking in the green room, I was saying how much I absolutely loved the audience with shows that Dame Edna did in the 80s. Just so brilliant. I would like to mention something that nobody else will mention, because there was a funny little sequel to the Rocky Horror Show, which is one of my favourite films ever, called Shock Treatment, and Barry Humphries does this incredible turn as Bert Stick, who's kind of the host of this bizarre TV channel. Barry Humphries was so versatile. You had Dame Edna, but you also had Les Patterson, and for those of us who love Shock Treatment, you had Bert Stick. Just all these completely different characters, but every single one of them giving such joy. And he never lost that real sense of mischief and humour. He was brilliant on the chat show circuit. We were giggling again about the time when he said all exactly the right phrases about Philip Schofield's coming out, but to Dermot O'Leary.
Perfect, because it's wicked. It's wicked. That is a great clip. It is a great clip. We've got to leave it there, Emma. Tom, thank you. We'll see you a little bit later on.